Are you registered? Yeah. Oh, that's
Hey everyone, thanks a lot for being here. Now we have the Fintech blockchain ICO panel. I would say this panel is very highly experienced in the financial sector and various different realms of it. So maybe everyone could start up by explaining a little bit about themselves and how they got into the business that they do currently.
Good evening, everybody. Hello. Get used to this thing first. Let's see. I started out my career about a decade ago and got into the advertising world. Then I was also in the equity world, and through the equity world, I met my partners and we started the Peak and Spartan Race company, which is now global. And then I moved down to South America and lived all around there, and particularly in Argentina, I noticed inflation, which was something that I'd never really known about, or I'd read about it or something. And so down there, for example, when I went to Uruguay, they said to me, well, how do we know you're not a cocaine dealer, And maybe I was, right? But anyways, the bottom line is, in Argentina, you had 20% inflation. And so that was the first time I really saw that. And people were literally running across the borders with bags of cash. And so that got me really inspired when Bitcoin came out, and to create a wallet that would allow people to hold multi-currency balances, which I still think is going to be the future of banking. And through a series of events, I got into Fintech.
So I'll give you guys a quick little prep on Fintech. So some of you that are newer to it, I would say Fintech is broken into 4 major areas. So Fintech is broken into 4 major areas, just to help you guys understand and not get confused with some of the panelists, because each of them are in various different sectors. The first major area is the banking sector, and I kind of separate it primarily based on the regulatory bodies involved in the U.S. Other countries, a little bit different, but in the U.S., it's basically broken down into 4 major areas. So that you got the banking side, the currency side, the real estate side, and the securities side. So each of these panelists kind of will have a different area or issues that go on. So my next question is, how did you survive some of the disruptions going through your industry, either in the past or currently? Basically explain to everyone, some of the issues that you go through, because Fintech is very highly regulated. It's probably one of the most regulated industries I've ever come across. And each of the participants here probably experience things differently from each other, primarily because of the 4 different regulatory areas.
Well, I would say that the best way to survive disruption is to be a disruptor yourself. And so that's how I've tried to be, and that's how I'm going to continue to try to be.
All right, so maybe explain to some of the people how blockchain crypto ledgers are affecting your industry, because I would say it's affecting pretty much every sector of the fintech side of just different types of crypto ledgers. It could be completely centralized. Are you being prepared for it anyhow? Are you going with it? Do you have any product plans for it? I know each of you have a different thing on it.
Well, certainly Bitcoin and blockchain. So my industry is basic. Well, I run an enterprise software So OneFX Pay is an enterprise software company. We provide a banking and e-commerce platform, particularly for B2B payments and transfers and things. And so, absolutely, blockchain and crypto is big in that. Ripple, of course, is a big name. They're working with the banks. And Ripple is, of course, a centralized coin, and it has a lot of adoption, or at least testing and whatnot. I particularly am philosophically more inclined toward the decentralized projects. So my favorite project, for example, is BitShares, which is the leading decentralized exchange. It does about $50 million in volume per day. And so when I look at blockchain and crypto projects, I'm really looking for what's actually being used and what actually has real use cases. And so right now there are 1,000 crypto coins or something like that. Many of them, for example, are currencies. Now, why is one currency going to be used over another, for example, right? Bitcoin is a currency, so to speak. Why would, quote, rad coin start being used, right? If you're looking at things to invest in, for example. So when I'm looking at the space, I'm always looking at use cases and, real world applications. And so things like the supply chain are being disrupted, international payments are being disrupted, identity verification, loan, credit scoring. These are all being disrupted and are interesting. And a lot of other people say some things too. Not sure.
So maybe explain to some of the crowd how you're positioning yourself for growth within your market. I'll say some of the areas are growing very rapidly right now, especially in the crypto side. But what are you doing to kind of do your growth?
So what we are, OneFX Pay, is a banking and e-commerce platform. And so over the past several years, forward thinkers have written articles about what if Amazon got into banking? What if Facebook got into banking? Well, nobody wrote an article about what if the bank got into the marketplace? Or what if the bank got into CRM software? And so that's what I've done, is I've created a bank where you log into your bank, and it's also basically Alibaba or eBay. And so Amazon.com might get into banking, but they rely on their 5 to 10% fees that they charge merchants. We're a bank, we've got a built-in marketplace, and we've eliminated merchant fees completely, almost, down to 10 cents. So that's what we're bringing to the table. As far as the crypto aspect of it, we're going to enable freelancers and merchants around the world to accept over 50 cryptocurrencies in about 60 days. So we're definitely excited about the world, the space of payments, and where things are going. I personally think that there's an incredible opportunity in the world today with the merging of the various technologies. Particularly, I'm talking about behavioral and data analytics with financial data. So, like the ad tech world, behavioral world, financial world, all of these things are coming together. And it's just a great time for entrepreneurs and developers out there with all the different APIs to really start and create really cool things. So we're excited for growth. That's what we're doing. And
huge, extraordinary new idea.
So I'm going to do the big R word. Within this industry, it's almost equivalent to the other one, but regulation. What are your thoughts? What are you guys doing?
My take on regulation is outsource it if you can. And I've dealt with regulation. I've had FDIC audits. We do regulation. We have a KYC process. Everybody who uses our platform, we know their identities. So I've been there, done that. We take it seriously, absolutely. We've also dealt with fraud. So, yeah, it's something you got to deal with. Outsource it if possible. What was your question? Was that it? So with the regulation, I think regulation is necessary, certainly to keep scams out, right? But there's always going to be scams, and I think what we're going to see coming down in the next couple of years is that regulators can't really control this, and hopefully they can, because some of us want to be this decentralized, and some of us want to be unregulated or deregulated. So I'm hoping that the regulators can't keep up with the technology, and that's what I'm hoping.
Keeping in mind that there's a video on. So putting on my securities attorney hat for a second, the regulations have always been there.
All right, so now you guys heard about the regulation side. We're going to transition to the next thing, almost right there, the big F. So with the regulation, I'll say most of the regulation is primarily there for the massive amounts of fraud that goes on. So within each of these individual sector, it could be anything from the authentication side to AML, FinCEN, maybe explain to the audience, some of the things that you're dealing with on the fraud side.
Well, first I'll just say in regards to outsourcing compliance, the reason why you want to outsource compliance is because otherwise you won't have a startup. They'll just be spending your money on the bureaucrats to push the paper. So if you want to have an actual startup and you're on a bootstrap budget, definitely outsource your compliance to people who you can trust and who do a good job. As far as the regulation goes, I just want to continue on that. I'm not big into the regulation. I think the biggest thing that will get crypto into the mainstream, it's a very simple feature. It's called the forgot password feature. There's no way, in my opinion, that crypto can reach a mainstream audience if people lose their holdings when they forget or lose their passwords. You can't have a business with billions of dollars and oops, the account lost the password. Or, honey, I lost the retirement this evening. So once they figure that out, I think that'll help get crypto much more widespread adoption. As far as regulation goes, yes and no, good and bad. I'm really into the innovation and people doing things. I think, we had Enron on the New York Stock Exchange, right? So things happen even in a regulated environment, but regulation does tend to stifle innovation. As far as the fraud goes, I've dealt with fraud, and so I've dealt with that in terms of ACH chargeback fraud, and all I can say is it sucks, man. I got a phone call that said we're shutting you down and you owe us $30,000. That's like, you don't want to get that phone call, and but it happens, and so if you're in the fintech industry, you got to be prepared for that. And some of that is doing compliance. Some of that is, your processes, how you set things up. And, if you have a legal team, you can go after them. In our particular case, what we learned and what I found in my experience was we were attacked by basically a gang. And what these people, how they operate, is each one of them will hit you for basically like $1,000, right? And so that's how they operate, because they know that if they take you for $1,000, nobody's going to come after them for $1,000. If I hit you for 10, I might go after that guy. But $1,000 cost me $1,000 just to talk to the lawyer. So so that's how some of this financial tech fraud is going down. Is people are hitting you like knife style, and they'll bleed you to death. But so fraud is definitely out there, and especially if you're in the fintech space, you've got to pay attention to it. Because the laws, I believe, are much more on the consumer side and not on the business side. So, if you sold somebody to somebody, I think the ACH window, for example, it's like 60 days. They can come back for you 60 days later and say, hey, guess what? And then, by then you've already spent that money, you paid your employees or what have you. So you've got to pay attention to your processes and how you're set up for fraud.